We have spoken a lot about intellectual contemplation towards this whole process of self knowledge. And it does bring some peace. However, it is also the last hurdle, it is the last roadblock. To be complete and pure presence. When we put in a lot of effort trying to understand what is one's own nature, we get identified by thought. Sometimes that produces a desire to attain a state, as one imagines how peace should be or how life should be. And that itself creates a lot of chaos and conflict. But when the effort is dropped and it is seen that no matter how brilliant our ideas may be to experience peace or enlightenment or whatever we want to call it, every movement leads to more and more entanglement, which is mind's favorite game. So, mind keeps continuing in the same loop forever, trying to find some object of desire, which it calls sometimes as the self, the pure eternal self, or Brahman, or consciousness, or Chaitanyam, or it can come up with any other fancy name that it wants to. But the thing is, that is just an object of mind's imagination. But heart is entirely different. Heart is self luminous. It is where actually the mind resides. So let's spend a couple of moments in the space of the heart, which is the being, and just go completely into this energy of relaxation and restfulness. You can keep your eyes open or closed. You can be seated in any posture you want. You're free to move in between. There is no rule about this. Just being, just be in the heart space. That's it. Ramana Maharishi always pointed to the heart space. He was a man of few words, and he did not like too much intellectual discussion or debate on anything, because the energy of an argument or a debate is completely different. It is not restful in nature, it is more exploratory, which is fine, but ultimately the peace that we seek is only found in stillness, stillness of the heart. And that's why Ramana said that silence is the language of love, of God. And in talks with Sri Ramana Maharishi, there's talk number 28, which says, so the questioner asks, is the study of science, psychology, physiology helpful for attaining yoga liberation or for intuitive understanding of the unity of reality? And I'll read out Ramana Maharishi's words. He says, very little, some theoretical knowledge is needed for yoga and may be found in books, but practical application is what is needed. Personal example and instruction are the most helpful aids. As for intuitive understanding, a person may laboriously convince himself of the truth to be grasped by intuition, of its function and nature, but the actual intuition is more like feeling and requires practical and personal contact. Mere book learning is not of any great use. After realization, all intellectual loads are useless burdens and are to be thrown overboard. And even the Upanishads say that the thorn of ignorance can be removed by the thorn of knowledge. But the knowledge itself is a thorn. So ultimately, even the thorn of knowledge has to be removed, because we have been living in concepts and they are nothing but intellectual burdens. But when we are resting in our heart space, in the beingness, in the amness or the isness that we are, do the questions arise? No, they do not arise. Why? Because in heart space there is no separation. Heart space is complete, it's whole. And in wholeness there is no separation, therefore there are no questions. But in the intellectual space there are questions, which is fine too. There's nothing wrong with that. But mind by nature cannot be satiated. No matter how much we try to reason our way into things, we can never find out the truth of anything simply by using the mind. Mind is a very limited tool, but heart is vast. Heart space is vast. So, Jacqueline,
Mm.
I
You
think,
hear me?
yes, now, yes, it's clear now. So what are your views on this whole idea of intellectual contemplation into the nature of reality?
I think that for me, the nature of reality was only explored beyond the thinking function. That's not to say that the thinking function has no good use in our day-to-day lives. It's actually amazing to me. But um, as far as radical acceptance of reality, I guess I could call it. I had to go I had to go into direct experience and question concepts, which maybe you can explain whether knowledge and concepts are essentially the same idea, but for me, they were there was a correlation there between a lot of concepts and a lot of knowledge and a lot of thinking mind going on.
Yeah. Yes. Actually, concepts in themselves are all beautiful. And yes, even Ramesh Balsekar said that intellectual understanding also brings a lot of peace. It is not that it is useless. The only thing is, it is easy to get caught up in concepts sometimes and just lose your reality, which is actually you don't lose your reality as such, but the mind perceives it in that way, as if the reality is lost because it is carried away in the line of thinking. And the the nature of contemplation that happens in this case, like as you are mentioning, it is a part of the heart awakening. So what happens is that one experiences more and more peace and restfulness, and that is the only benchmark. Other than that, no fancy term like awakening or enlightenment has any value. Those are all concepts. But peace is not a concept. Peace not as we understand in daily living, but simply the peace, not the peace of the person, but the peace by itself, the beingness, the space that we were in. As we learn to recognize that, the mind tastes that peace. And when it tastes that peace, the thing is, it can never forget that taste. Now, the contemplation may still happen. The restlessness may still come back. The anxiety may still come back because nobody has any control over that. Those things may appear every now and then. But having tasted that peace, having had glimpse of that unchanging reality, which is the ground of all experiential awareness, or I am, it does not get caught up in entanglement. And that translates into daily living because we engage fully with people, with life, but we do not get involved. Engagement is complete, but involvement is very limited. So it simplifies life. It does not necessarily make it easy, but it simplifies life. And that is the only uh, relief we have. Okay, so anybody would like to share anything or ask a question, please feel free to. Okay. Yes, Meena. Hi.
Based on my little experience, I'm not sure about your experience, but initially when we start to explore, it's a lot of concepts and a lot of years of intellectual knowledge. I'm not sure if anyone can bypass it easily, unless, like Ramana, you have a lucky accident. But years on end, I had lots of conceptual knowledge and understanding, and consciousness was something like a bubble here outside of me, and I felt drawn to it, even to non-duality. Very weird, but with only pure intellectual understanding and diving into concepts and all sorts of traditions, until a lucky kind of glimpse crossed me through this other side. So that now I can understand, now I can feel what you're saying, right? More than just understand. But other than that, I'm not sure if it's practically possible to just, unless you are very lucky, to just dive directly, or very innocent, right? My problem was that I knew a lot of stuff, which obscured lots for me many years. You can lose yourself in traditions, schools, ideologies for many, many years. They are useful, but unless you process them at a different level, they just remain here. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share. I'm not sure if you will there be like any pointers for somebody that it's still very head heavy to drop more into body, to drop into heart. It takes something that I'm not sure the mind can concoct and put together, you know. And most people just function at mind level.
Yes, true. That is true. And yes, I have myself gone through that path too. So I had my list prepared that, once I go through all the sutras in Buddhism and then I go through the Upanishads and then 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 I will be there. And what I noticed was that the more I read about these things, the more I felt there was an air of arrogance around me. And the kindness was not there, actually. Kindness was not there. Because somehow it, gave me this idea that I am on a separate path and, somehow that path is special. And at just one point, I realized that none of these concepts are of any use unless I'm fully present to what is, fully present to whatever is happening. And yes, sometimes we try to use concepts to find our way around troubling emotions because sometimes we don't want to feel them. Now, if that happens, that's also fine. But at some point, one realizes that that is not possible. And heart, or like as as we say, beingness is not to be attained because in my own experience, what I found was that there was no time involved in this understanding. I just felt happy at one point, and there was just no need for answers. And I remember being on my terrace, and I noticed one day that I wasn't getting questions in my head, because most of the time, a lot of contemplation would keep happening in my head all the time. It would just start in the morning, the moment I woke up, and it would end when the day ended. Lot of contemplation. I was the one questioning, I was the one providing the answers. And it kept happening, happening, happening. I was exhausted. And I asked a couple of teachers, I said, what is going on? Like, why am I getting so exhausted? And the only answer which I got, which I thought was, which suited the situation, is to just let it process, like whatever is processing, let it process. And it will stop when it's destined to stop. The thing was that it was exhausting. It was exhausting. It didn't leave me with much capacity to do any creative endeavor, or even even just simply, go for a walk and just enjoy the pleasantness of nature. So, from my personal experience, I would say that there's actually nothing to be done as such for the concepts to drop, other than just be with the awareness whenever it comes. I would not tell anybody to try to grab it or try to seek it or hold it, but there are moments, many moments, when it comes. And whenever it comes, just hold it and be. That's it. And with that, this presence, this spacious awareness, it starts to grow. Now, that's a concept again, because it's not that the awareness grows, but it's like the mind becomes more and more quiet. So we can feel the awareness growing. But awareness is like the eternal sun that never stops shining. It is always there, ever present. So I hope that is helpful.
When we were little children, we were actually in that space, because when we see it, at least in my experience, it's a remembrance, it's a recognition of, I've seen this before, I was this before, possibly before the mind developed and put lots of layers of concepts and ideologies, and now we are trying like our way back, it seems. Yeah. Was that in your experience? It was something familiar?
Yes, yes. I think when we were children, we were spontaneous. We were spontaneous. We didn't have concepts. We didn't live with concepts. And life was much simpler. It wasn't easier, but it was much simpler. That I can say.
Maybe that's why they say that children are joyful, right, naturally. And we lost that joyfulness along the way. Now we are working our way back.
Mina, I shared one image with Jacqueline the other day, and it was image of two people working at a construction site here in India. It was a man and his wife. And you're probably aware of the poverty level in India. And these two people were working as daily wage laborers. And they have one daughter. And I just kept looking at them for a very long time. Now, of course, I could see physical hardship, but the two were so much in tune. I did not see any psychological suffering because they were so much in tune with each other. They knew exactly what is to be done, where the bricks are to be kept, where the sand is to be thrown, which object is to be lifted at what point. And uh, it was a beautiful thing to witness. I think Jacqueline also saw that. And these people do not have much concepts, although to the outside world it may seem that they are living a very hard life, that they are suffering. But what I see is they work the whole day, they earn their wage, they go back home, have a meal with their children, and sleep much more peacefully than any of us here do. So, but our mind says that no, we have more concepts, we know more. Therefore, we are somehow at a higher stage of evolution, and somehow we have attributed a lot of importance to the intellect. Whereas if we read the scriptures, they say that it is tied up with the inner instrument, which is the antakarna, which is tied up with the ego. So it is not designed to be satiated, this instrument. However, I would say that it is a brilliant instrument. The intellect is a brilliant tool. Like it can achieve marvelous things in the world, fanciest things in the world. If you want to build a bridge, you need intellect. You need that mind. But same mind, when it is too sharp, it learns to cut everything into two. So we can actually achieve so much in this world if we make this mind, this intellect mind sharp. But here's the drawback, that it's just going to cut everything into two. Sometimes when there is a loving presence offered by another, it again starts cutting that into two. It says that this man has a motive, this person has a motive, or that he's not clear or she's not clear. It starts doubting because it has sharpened itself so much. So the critical thinking is a valuable tool. It's an amazing tool, and it's actually quite helpful in the world. But the same tool can become a roadblock to one's peace. Whereas when the mind surrenders, the heart starts blossoming, and we again go back to that childlike stage. Then what happens? Here is the thing. Child is prepared to receive shocks. Child does not try to protect itself. He or she is willing to explore and receive shock. But we get so scared that we don't want shocks. We are careful. Sometimes we are too careful. So, yes, that happens.
Those people that you described, they seem to be like in a state of flow, like
Yes,
very task oriented and absorbed, as
yes,
opposed to ego absorbed, like I'm now to say something smart or something, right? My ego is stays in my way here.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's
So, yes,
what
the
it
state
seems.
of flow is what, Ramesh would call the working mind. The working mind, which is like completely concerned about the actions. And I saw, the beauty about that was that they were so much in synchronization. There weren't arguments between them. They knew what to do, and nobody was invading the other person's personal territory or trying to, neither the woman was trying to do the man's job, nor the man was trying to do the woman's job. They knew their roles clearly. They knew their potential, what they can do and what they cannot do. And there was a beautiful synchronization, and there was no debate about what one deserves to do or what does not deserve to do. So life definitely in that way becomes simplistic, spontaneous for them. They know their course from morning to evening. It is not to say that, that there are no, small minor bickerings here and there. I mean, all those things happen in life, but it's like just everything is momentary, just like children, when they play, they fight sometimes, they argue sometimes, but then they make up and then they start playing again. So it's all spontaneous. It's all
Organic,
organic, natural.
like with no agenda,
No,
as
no,
opposed to having an agenda that's spontaneous and organic.
no. There is no outcome attached to it. It is free of the outcome. That is the thing. And that is actually the core of the message, is that spontaneity comes when the mind gives up the idea of a preferred outcome. That is peace. That is the heart space. Okay. So anybody else would like to share anything or ask a question? Yes, Meena, go on.
So in daily life, how should we deepen this experience? Because daily life is challenging, right? And mind, it's addictive, would be a good word for it. And it's coming online and takes over the show. Usually we forget, right? We lose the state. We forget. How should, like, are there any steps to follow in daily life so that we abide more in this natural state, original state, as opposed to living in our minds? Like some tips, if you have to share.
You just showed me that it is already, that understanding is already there, because you did the air quotes when you said that.
Yes, but it's not like I'm not losing myself in mind anymore. It does come back online, and I do forget
It does come back.
things.
So, all I would say in that regard is that it's okay if it goes for a walk sometimes, here and there, wanders here and there. Let it do that. Let it do that. Let it come back. And just, be present to what is the story underneath the feeling or the sensation that is troubling. Now, in the moment, sometimes it is difficult to contemplate that. But when you're totally present, you can always see, or let's say, let me put it this way, that it can be seen, it is witnessed that there is always a story which is either related to survival, or it is related to some sort of a future anticipation. And in my experience, it is usually some sort of a future anticipation that makes us restless in a given moment. Now, when we know that, as Ramana Maharishi said, that what is destined to happen will happen, when that goes deep into one's being and becomes a part of one's complete system, then the effects of that restlessness or anxiety, whatever you want to call it, they begin to wither away. They begin to, slowly you experience more and more restfulness because you're not analyzing too much as to what is happening. You're just being completely present with the feeling. And when you're completely present with the feeling, you see that there is actually no root to it. Although we do say that I am experiencing the feeling. But then if we make an inquiry as to where that I is, we do not find it. So, bringing yourself back to that awareness is the only way. And sometimes that does not happen. And that is accepted too. But in most of the cases, you can just bring yourself here and now. And that itself will dissolve everything. Because now is completely free of all concepts. It is free of time. It does not depend on time. In fact, time is an illumination in the now. Just watch when the mind starts to get entangled. And just that watching will stop that. It'll just drop that. Do not judge yourself for carrying on because that's just the mind's ploy to continue itself. So when, I would put it in Nisargadatta Maharaj's words where he said that just disregard the false and all the movement that is created by the mind in the form of I should not have done this, I should not have thought this, I should not be like this or be like that. All that is the ploy of the mind to perpetuate itself. It does not want any freedom, any peace. It just wants to continue itself. So when one is totally present with that, with all the mind's movement, what you will notice is that you automatically land up in the heart space, into your being. And no effort is required. It's just here, it's just now. And it's complete. Okay, I hope that answers the question, or at least gives some momentary relief. So we will continue tomorrow again, same time, and I wish you all peace and thank you for your beautiful presence today. We'll meet again tomorrow. Take care.